Hey guys, tonight we're going to fall asleep to the gentle sounds of creaking timber, muffled gossip, and, well, medieval torture. We're stepping into the past, specifically into a public square where justice was less about due process and more about dramatic flair. Lots of screaming and an absurdly large wheel. Don't worry though, it's just a story. You'll be fine. Probably, you're about to witness one of history's most notorious execution methods, the breaking wheel. Spoiler alert, you wouldn't survive it. But that's part of the fun, right? Escaping into someone else's nightmare from the cozy safety of your bed. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment with your city and local time. It's always weirdly comforting to know someone across the world is drifting off with you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is thick with the scent of smoke, meat, and something less pleasant that you choose not to investigate too closely. It's nearly dusk. The last rays of sun skim off the tiled roofs of a town that's existed for hundreds of years and hasn't once installed a sewer system. You're standing on cobblestones uneven, damp, and faintly sticky, and to your left, a horse relieves itself with casual medieval flair. Everything feels a bit surreal. The buildings lean inwards, like they're gossiping above you. Smoke curls out of chimney pots in long, lazy trails. You spot a baker's boy racing through the crowd with a basket of rolls and an expression that says, "Don't ask what's in these." The square is packed, shoulder to shoulder, but no one's pushing or shoving. There's too much anticipation in the air for that somewhere a bell tolls slow, solemn, and heavy with implication. A group of women clutch their shawls tighter, whispering in low tones. Children chase a stray dog near the gallows platform before their mothers hiss them back with firm hands and narrowed eyes. You're not here by accident. You were drawn, like everyone else, by a buzz in the market earlier today. "It's happening," someone said. They're bringing out the wheel. And just like that, the wheel re-enters your world. Not a cartwheel or a potter's wheel. The wheel, tall, heavy, and curved with intent. You can't see it yet, but you can feel its presence ahead, in the center of the square. It's like the crowd itself is orbiting around something gravitational and awful. There's a mild chill in the air. You tuck your hands into your sleeves. Nearby, a woman hawks roasted chestnuts from a cart because nothing pairs. It's better with public execution than a warm snack and a sprinkle of salt. You buy one, mostly for the warmth. It burns your tongue. A little, but the comfort is worth it. As you chew, a breeze drifts past, carrying with it the faint sounds of hammers and wood creaking. A group of men are finalizing the setup, adjusting rope tension, reinforcing spokes. They don't speak much. Their movements are practiced, bored even. Like people installing a tent for a village fair. You sidestep a pair of monks deep in argument. Something about the morality of pain, or perhaps the best place to stand for a clear view. A child climbs onto a barrel, slips, and is caught by a grandmother who scolds him with one hand while holding a pear in the other. It's strange how ordinary it all feels, but you can't ignore the tension. It simmers just below the surface, like the whole crowd is waiting for the sun to dip, just low enough for shadows to stretch. That's when the real show starts. The pageantry of justice, as they call it. Half theater, half horror. All legally sanctioned, the crowd begins to quiet. It's not silent. There's never full silence in a medieval town, but the volume has dropped. You feel it more than hear it. People are shifting, craning necks, kids hoisted onto shoulders. The smell of hot wine from a nearby vendor competes with the scent of iron and something raw. And then, through a small gap in the press of bodies, you glimpse it, the wheel. It's larger than you expected, taller than a man, with thick wooden spokes, and a rim lined with iron. It's been propped vertically against a post, like a strange, menacing sculpture. You wonder if anyone ever thought to just roll it away and pretend it was never invented. Its surface gleams slightly, not polished, but worn smooth from repeated use. That's somehow worse. It means it's been handled, turned, cleaned, repurposed. A working object, not just a symbol. The execution platform beside it is unadorned. No banners, no pomp, just a raised plank with space for tools, a bucket of water, a few cloths, and the executioner's signature long-handled mallet, functional, efficient, merciless. A small voice near your elbow murmurs, "Do you think it'll be fast?" An older man, possibly that snorts. If it's fast, they're doing it wrong. There it is again, that tangle of excitement and dread. This isn't just justice. This is event. And people have gathered not just to watch, but to feel. Something to remind themselves they are not the ones tied to that wheel. Somewhere behind you, someone begins to sing a hymn. A few others join in. Their voices are rough but haunting, like they're trying to bless the square before it becomes unholy. A dog barks. A man hawks pickpocket charms. A baby cries. And in the middle of it all, you stand still, watching the fading light catch the rim of the wheel, K, and wondering how something so simple, wood and metal, could become a symbol of fear for centuries. Historians still wonder whether the wheel's true power lay in its pain, or in its spectacle. And here, tonight, in the golden hour of anticipation, you feel both rising all around you. You make your way forward, slipping through the shifting bodies with the half apology people give when they're not really sorry. A polite elbow here, a quiet just squeezing through there. Until you're close enough to see it properly, the wheel up close. And it's just a wheel. That's the first unsettling realization. There's no dramatic aura, no devilish ornamentation. No skulls nailed to it like a bad stage prop. Just solid oak, old iron, and the faint scent of smoke baked into its grain. It's the kind of wheel you'd expect on a farm cart. The kind of thing that, in another life, might have hauled apples to a village fair or beer barrels to a tavern. But this one has scars. The wood is cracked and darkened in patches. One spoke has a deep gouge across it, like someone bit it, which you try not to dwell on. The rim has been reinforced with bands of iron, not just to hold it together, but to keep it from giving under force, the kind of force that breaks bones. It leans against a thick post, ready to be mounted horizontally once the time comes. For now, it rests quiet and ominous, like a predator that hasn't decided when to pounce. You step closer, close enough to make out the dark smudges that might be old blood or just shadows. Playing tricks on your tired eyes, the platform creaks. Under the feet of the executioner's assistants as they test the supports and adjust the placement of restraints, thick leather straps already weathered from use. One of the assistants glances at you. He's young, shockingly young. Maybe 17, he has a faint mustache, and the distant look of someone who's already detached from the day ahead. His eyes flick down to your feet, then back up. You realize you're standing a little too close to the edge of the stage. You take a gentle step back. Somewhere in the crowd, a drunk man starts heckling the platform. Something about the wheel being crooked. Or maybe the executioner's mother. He's quickly hushed by someone more sober and possibly less brave. There's a certain absurdity to it all. A wooden circle, 4 planks, a mallet, a rope, nothing else. And yet this arrangement was once enough to reduce hardened criminals, political dissidents, and the unlucky alike into silent warnings for others. The design of the wheel evolved over time. You learn from the whispers around you. At first, it really was just a wagon wheel, a repurposed object of convenience. But as the art of public punishment grew more refined, so did the technology. Wheels became larger. Some were custom-made, thick-rimmed, with gaps between spokes, two-thread limbs through for easy braking. Some had sharp edges or spikes. Others were even heated. You give the wheel a long, skeptical stare. It's not heated. That feels like a blessing. Somehow, a man next to you, bearded, wide-eyed, leans in and says, some versions spun while they did it. Like a rotisserie, but not for chickens. You nod slowly, pretending this is completely normal bedtime conversation. And still, people gather. They shuffle forward, whisper, pass flasks, chew on dried fruit. They examine the wheel with a same curiosity you'd give a new piece of farming equipment. Looks sturdy, one says. Built to last, another agrees, and it did last. For centuries, you imagine, just for a moment. The first person who thought of it, not someone in a dark tower stroking a cat. Just some official in a robe saying, well, we've got rope. We've got wheels. What if we just put them together? You try to picture the meeting? Was there a blueprint? A vote? Did someone pitch this with diagrams? One well-known fact. The braking wheel was often used across Europe to punish particularly gruesome crimes. Murder, robbery, treason. But in practice, it was also applied inconsistently. Sometimes used for petty theft, especially if the accused was poor or unlucky. The idea wasn't always about matching punishment to crime. It was about making an example. One lesser-known detail, not everyone was broken alive in some cases, especially where mercy was begged or bribed for. The condemned would be strangled or struck fatally before the wheel came into play. In others, their bodies would be broken posthumously as a kind of symbolic punishment. Because nothing says, we hated you, like smashing your limbs after you're dead. There's debate still ongoing about how common that mercy was. Historians still wonder if the fatal blows were truly acts of kindness or just crowd control, meant to wrap things up when audiences grew impatient. The assistants return, now carrying a length of chain. It scrapes across the platform with a sound that sets your teeth on edge. One of them tests the locking mechanism. Click, clack, and you watch the motion, slow and methodical. These people have done this before, probably many times. Someone in the crowd points out a notch on the wheel's rim. That's where the leg goes, he explains to a younger companion. See, they rest it like this, then the hammer. He mimes a downward strike, and you try not to wince. But the wheel isn't just a braking tool, it's a display rack. After the bones were broken, victims would often be woven into the wheel, yes, like human spaghetti, then hoisted up on poles for everyone to see, like macabre signage. Don't do crime, or you'll end up art, you wonder. About the psychology behind this. Was it fear? A moral message? Or just a deeply repressed society finding release in cruelty? No one around you seems too philosophical about it. A girl braids her friend's hair while her father cleans his teeth with a stick. A merchant counts coins in his palm, possibly planning to place a bet on how many bones get. Snapped before sunset, you're the only one really studying the wheel with a kind of reverence. It's not elegant. It's not ornate, but it is deliberate, engineered for maximum control over how someone suffers. And for that, it's genius. It's horrible, terrifying genius. A shadow falls over the platform. The sun has dipped just below the rooftops. The golden warmth is gone. Replaced by the blue hush of evening, someone lights a torch. Another, the flames crackle to life, reflecting faintly in the iron bands on the wheel's rim. And just like that, the mood changes. The crowd leans in. The wheel, motionless all day, seems to breathe. Not literally. Of course, but it feels alive now, charged with the electricity of imminent use. You step back. Heart a little faster, because you know the wheel won't stay still much longer. You don't notice the hush fall over the crowd, It sort of sneaks in, like a fog rolling across a field. One moment people are murmuring, jostling, making snide bets, and finishing meat pies. And the next silence, or something like it. There's still sound, but it's muted now. Focused, tight, all heads have turned toward the narrow alley where the condemned will arrive. You shift slightly to see better, your feet numb from standing. Your shoulders brushing against the scratchy wool of the woman next to you. She doesn't notice. Her eyes are locked on the alley too. She grips the end of her shawl so tightly it looks like it might rip. Then from the shadows, they come. It's not dramatic. There are no trumpets, no bells, just a handful of guards walking slowly, deliberately behind them, a priest. And behind him, the man you've all been waiting for. He looks smaller than you expected. His shirt is torn at the collar. He has no shoes. His hands are tied in front of him with thick cord. And his steps are clumsy, like someone learning how feet work. One guard holds his elbow. The other follows close behind, gripping a cudgel that no one really expects to use, but absolutely will if needed. There's something strange about watching someone walk toward their death. You'd expect fear, or screaming, or at least some last-minute poetic shouting. But this man is quiet. It's too quiet. His face is slack, eyes staring straight ahead like he's already left his body and is just waiting for the rest of himself to catch up. A voice near you mutters, "Thief, horse, I heard. Took it from a magistrate." Another says, "That was last week." This one, they say he murdered a friar. Could have been both. Could have been nothing, says a woman in a low tone. And that's the thing. You'll never really know. Maybe he did something. Maybe he didn't. But the wheel doesn't care. It has no interest in guilt or innocence. It just needs someone to tie down. Here's a truth. People from the lower rungs of society, peasants, vagrants, beggars were far more likely to end up on the wheel than anyone else. A noble could commit arson and the worst they'd face would be exile and a stern letter. But steal the wrong loaf of bread and suddenly you're an example. A very public, very broken example. The man now stands. At the base of the platform, he doesn't look up. The priest leans in to whisper. Something to him, probably a final offer for confession. Or maybe just a gentle last-moment kindness. The man doesn't respond. He's lifted, not forced. That's a surprise. The guards don't drag him or beat him. They each take an arm and guide him up the steps as if helping an old man onto a wagon. There's no struggle. No fight left. Someone behind you scoffs. Not even going to make a scene. Another shrugs. They say that means the devil's already taken them, emptied them out, and now he's on the platform. He stands awkwardly, knees bent slightly. Inward, his eyes skim the crowd without really focusing. You wonder what he sees. Does he recognize anyone? Does he care? You spot a boy on his father's shoulders, eating something sticky and red. The father is pointing at the man on the platform and explaining something with far too much enthusiasm for your taste. A final crime. A final crowd. One lesser-known detail. Sometimes, people were condemned to the wheel not for what they did, but for who they were. Traveling performers, foreigners, people who didn't belong in the tight little boxes the village liked to check off. It was convenient, really. If you couldn't explain someone, you could always punish them. Historians have long debated a particularly strange case in 17th century Bavaria. Woman executed by wheel for being bewitched in behavior. Her only real crime. Crows and refusing to marry to this day. Scholars argue whether she was a victim of paranoia or just really bad at small talk. Back on the platform. The man has been laid down flat across a low bench. The executioner, tall, silent, face covered in cloth, kneels beside him and ties his limbs into place. Arm, leg. Leg, it's clinical. He could be preparing a table for carpentry. You wonder about that executioner, what he thinks, what he feels. If he dreams, is this a job or a calling? Does he enjoy it or just tolerate it, like bad weather and taxes? One elbow is tied just slightly higher than the other, so it'll fall at a better angle over the wheel's rim. The body is positioned not for comfort, but for convenience. For access, the wheel is pulled flat now, laid beside the man. They will move him onto it soon. Bend his limbs around the spokes like a grotesque kind of ribbon. Somewhere in the square, K-Baby begins to cry, a loud, shrieking cry, but that, low. Wobbly one babies do when they sense something is wrong but don't know what. It cuts through the murmurs like a tiny knee-shaky trumpet. You glance again at the man. His mouth twitches slightly. His first expression was that. A smile, a grimace, or just a muscle spasm. No one knows. No one ever does. Because this part of the journey isn't about truth. It's about ritual, about what the people want to believe. That justice is being served. That order is restored. That someone paid dot, and if it happens to be the wrong someone, well, the wheel turns just the same. The executioner finishes tying the last strap. He stands, straightens his back, and turns toward. The crowd, no words, just a slow nod and then movement. They begin to shift the man toward the wheel. Carefully at first, it takes 4 men to lift him and 1 to guide the placement of his limbs. It's slow, measured like setting a table, like arranging a sculpture. People lean forward, feet shuffle. Breath catches in collective lungs. The wheel groans slightly under the weight. You swallow, suddenly aware of the tightness in your chest. The wind has died down. The torches flicker harder now. A bell tolls once, and you know the breaking is about to begin. You don't mean to stare at the executioner, but it's hard not to. The man is as much a part of the ritual as the wheel itself. Tall, draped in dark leather and rough linen. His face is almost completely obscured beneath a cowl. Only his hands are visible, broad, calloused things that seem to move with an odd kind of grace. He's adjusting the wheel again now. Not rushed, not clumsy, just careful. He checks the ropes, tests the tension. Lifts the mallet once, as if measuring its weight against the air. The crowd watches him with a curious blend of revulsion and respect, like they're seeing both a butcher and a surgeon. That's the paradox of him. Everyone needs him, and no one wants to talk to him. Executioners in the medieval world were outcasts by trade. They were paid well, sometimes better than blacksmiths or city guards, but that money came with an invisible price tag. People avoided shaking their hands. Children were warned not to play near their homes. They were required to live on the edges of towns, near the gallows, or behind the cemetery wall, where the soil was too heavy with ghosts to grow anything but weeds and regrets. And yet, come execution day, all eyes turn to them, because when you need a man to shatter a dozen bones without killing someone too quickly, you want a professional. The one before you now moves with eerie precision. Not dramatic, not theatrical, just efficient. His mallet is made of hardwood, bound in iron at one end, heavy enough to break, not crush. He lays it down for a moment and speaks softly to his assistant. You can't hear what he says, but the boy nods quickly and scuttles off. You wonder what it takes to become one of them. Is there training? A manual? Do you shadow an older, more experienced executioner until you've cracked your first rib under supervision? There's a weird kind of apprenticeship vibe here, you have to admit, especially with the assistant. He can't be more than 20. There's still a trace of softness around his jaw, like a baby-faced Grim Reaper in training. He fetches a bucket of water and a cloth, then wipes down the mallet. You're not sure if this is for cleanliness, symbolism, or just showmanship. A curious detail you overhear from a man beside you? Some executioners used to carry little knives in their sleeves, not to finish off the condemned, but to protect themselves from the crowd. Because as much as townspeople cheered the spectacle, they often hated the man behind it. Some even threw stones once the job was done. As if purging the guilt of having enjoyed it too much, historians still debate whether executioners internalized their outsider status, used it as a kind of armor. Some records show they held great power, walking unchallenged through cities, called upon for legal and religious ceremonies, even consulted as surgeons due to their knowledge of anatomy. Others suggest they were little more than tolerated shadows, essential, but never embraced. You can't ask the man before you, even if you shouted, even if he stopped to listen. His face wouldn't give anything away. There's a calmness in him, but not a softness. He's here to do a job. And he knows exactly how many bones he needs to break before the town can sleep soundly. The condemned man shifts slightly on the wheel. Not much, just a breath's worth of movement. The ropes creak. The assistants tighten them again. His arms are already starting to swell at the pressure points. You glance down. One leg is angled across to spokes, just above the knee. That's where the mallet will fall first. If they follow tradition, the executioner reaches for it again, 2 hands. One smooth motion. For a second, the whole square holds its breath. Then he stops, sets the mallet down again, turns toward the priest, who is stepping forward now, clutching his book with trembling fingers. He clears his throat and begins to speak. Delivering a short passage in Latin, it's solemn, rhythmic. Something about judgment and mercy and divine forgiveness. You don't understand the words, but the cadence settles over the crowd like a soft blanket. People bow their heads. Even the gamblers near the well go quiet. The condemned man doesn't react. He's either beyond hearing or beyond caring. A baby cries again, quickly hushed. And then it's time. The priest steps back. The assistants clear away. The executioner raises the mallet. No hesitation this time. The first strike is anticlimactic. You expect a crack, a scream, something cinematic, but it's more of a thud. A heavy, sickening thud, like a log dropped onto wet earth. The man grunts, loudly. His whole body tenses. But he doesn't scream. That almost makes it worse. The executioner steps around the wheel, lifts the mallet again, and brings it down on 2. The man's other leg, another thud. This time, a sharp gasp. His mouth opens wide, but no sound comes out. Just the look of someone who swallowed lightning. People in the crowd exhale. A murmur. Shift. The performance has truly begun. You watch. The executioner's face, or what you can see of it, still calm. No expression. No cruelty either. He doesn't look pleased, but he doesn't look bothered. Just focused. The next blow lands on an arm. You hear a crack this time. It's hard to tell if it came from bone or wood. The man cries out now, low and guttural. His feet twitch. One of the assistants steps in to retighten a strap. You look at the wheel differently now. This is more than a prop. It's a framework for suffering. Each spoke an opportunity. Each angle a calculated target, and the executioner. He's less like a villain and more like a conductor. Each strike is a note, a beat, a rhythm in a dark, ancient song no one wants to hear, but everyone came to listen to. 3 more blows. The man screams now, full-throated and ragged. The crowd flinches, but doesn't look away. Some are crying. A few are clutching each other, and one, you notice, is sketching the scene into a worn notebook. The assistant hands the executioner a second mallet. This one lighter, narrower, designed for joints, more precise. More intimate. You feel something? Cold behind your ribs. It's not fear. Exactly, more like a creeping reverence. You're not watching. Punishment. you're watching ritual. The final blows are faster. Smaller bones, now wrists, ankles, ribs. The man has gone limp, conscious, maybe, but his voice is gone. Only the wind replies to the mallet now. With a quiet whistle through the alleyway, the executioner steps back. The crowd holds still. Then slowly, mechanically, the assistants begin to raise the wheel. It lifts inch by inch to the vertical. The man's body bends awkwardly around it. It's held in place by gravity and the cruelty of engineering. His head hangs to one side. His arms are tangled across the spokes, and there he will stay. For hours, maybe days. Exposed, a warning, a message. And the executioner, T walks away. Just another day's work. Now that the wheel stands upright, it's hard to look at anything else. The man is twisted into it like a grotesque marionette whose strings were cut mid-performance. His limbs sag where the brakes have rendered them useless, yet the straps hold him in place like a morbid display in a butcher shop window. And somehow, people start talking again. Not in shock, not in horror, but casually, like someone just opened a food stall. There's a collective exhale. As if now that the worst part is done, everyone can relax and get back to the business of watching, or eating, or gossiping, or placing bets on how long it'll take before the man finally dies. It's surreal. But here, in this time, this place, it's normal. A child weaves through the crowd with a basket of warm nuts, calling out the price as if he's at a fair. A woman passes by holding a mug of mulled cider, the steam curling upward like incense. Somewhere to your right, a lute starts playing a tune far too upbeat for the occasion. This isn't just a punishment. It's a public event, and these people didn't come to quietly mourn the human condition. They came to watch it burn, laugh at the smoke, and maybe go home with a new story to tell over supper. You glance around, there are entire families here. Grandmothers with shawls over their heads, toddlers perched on shoulders, teenage boys trying to look bored and failing miserably. They've been here for hours. Some brought stools. Others brought bread. One guy near the back is literally lying on a blanket like he's at a picnic. You overhear someone mutter, "Well, I've seen worse." Last month in Buois, the guy started singing halfway through. Badly. Another voice responds. At least this one didn't spit. Remember the spitting one? There's laughter. Laughter. You blink slowly. You're not even surprised anymore. That's the strange thing. How fast the extraordinary becomes ordinary. You've been standing here, witnessing an execution so elaborate it required a wheel and a crew of trained specialists, and the woman next to you just asked her husband if they should get trout or pork for dinner. One well-documented fact: public executions were social gatherings. People took days off for them. Vendors made a killing. Sometimes artists would sketch a scene and sell prints to the crowd. There were even musicians hired to play during long executions, especially in cities where the noble families wanted the atmosphere to feel ... elevated. One lesser-known detail: some towns turned execution days into semi-official holidays. Children would receive coins if they behaved during the spectacle. Bakers offered gallows loaves, small sweet rolls shaped like bones. You could buy one right now from the man behind you, who is loudly advertising wheel buns 2 for a penny, 3 if you don't ask what's in them. A boy near the front is poking his friend with a stick and giggling. Not because he doesn't understand what he's seeing, but because he does and finds it absurd. It's the same nervous energy you feel in a dentist's waiting room, terrified, but just detached enough to laugh about it. The executioner is gone now, probably halfway home. The assistants linger a bit longer, packing up the tools and wiping the mallets down with soaked cloths. One of them waves to someone in the crowd. That someone waves back. The wheel creaks in the breeze, shifting slightly, The man strapped to it groans, a sound so weak you might have imagined it. A few people glance up. A few more don't even notice. That's the other part of it. The body might stay for days, but people's attention won't. They'll go back to their chores, their debts, their quiet resentments, and soon, this will be just another wheel in the square. Just another tale for market day. You try to imagine what it would feel like to be the one on the wheel, to hear people eating and chatting and placing wagers while your bones knit themselves into awful new shapes, to feel the cold setting in your broken fingers while someone 2 feet away haggles over the price of a roasted bird. It's not just cruel, it's absurd. Absurd in that way, history often is brutality wrapped in pageantry, served with a side of flat beer. A young man is performing near the fountain now, some kind of juggling act. A small crowd gathers, tease, clap. He's good. Someone throws him a coin. He bows dramatically. Right in front of the wheel, you half expect the man on it to applaud. One woman steps forwards, lowly, respectfully, and tosses a flower at the base of the platform. Not dramatically, not for show, just a gesture. She lingers a moment, then walks away. The crowd doesn't notice. She's the only one who seems to remember that there's still a person up there, broken, barely breathing, but human. Historians still ask, did people truly become desensitized to this kind of punishment? Or was their laughter and distraction just a mask and emotional defense against the sheer horror of it all? Did they joke because they were numb, or because they were terrified? You wonder. The crowd thins. Some people head home. Others drift toward the food stalls. You hear the faint whistle of a shepherd calling in his dog. The sky is deepening into what? True night now. A few torches are relit. Others sputter out. The square feels different, quieter, but not empty. The wheel still turns, just a little in the wind. And beside it, someone laughs at a joke you didn't hear. The next morning arrives with a sky so pale it looks like parchment left too long in the sun. You're still in the square, somehow not out of duty or fascination, but because something about this moment won't let you go. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's the eerie calm, or maybe it's the grim, slow magic of watching history breathe. The crowd is thinner now. Just a few stragglers. The vendors are gone. Their carts rolled home or parked crookedly near the alley. The scent of roasted chestnuts has been replaced by something sour sweat, dirt, and the faint tang of old blood baked into wood. The wheel still stands. So does the man. Well, what's left of him? He's alive. Maybe. His chest rises just barely. And there's a strange rattle when he exhales. It could be breath, or wind, or imagination. His head tilts at a strange angle. His left arm has turned a deep purple, swollen around the broken spokes like a bloated river around a jagged bend. A couple of boys toss pebbles at the base of the platform, not at him, just nearby. Testing the limits of their own nerves, their mother catches sight of them and calls them off with a sharp snap of her fingers. She's carrying a basket of fish and doesn't break stride. This is what the aftermath looks like. And it's no accident, the spectacle of the wheel wasn't just the breaking. It was the waiting, the lingering, the slow, open-ended question that hung in the air for as long as the condemned clung to life. When will it end? How long will he last? Is he still suffering? In many places, the goal wasn't just execution. It was extended death. The wheel was designed not to kill immediately, but to let the body fail over time, one bone at a time, one breath at a time. This was a punishment built around duration. Historical fact: in some cases, victims were left out for days. Exposed to the sun, the rain, the birds, insects would gather. Dogs would linger nearby, and people would pass by the square. Glance up, nod slightly, and go about their errands. The condemned became furniture, a feature, a fixture in the scenery, like a street lamp or a hitching post. But not everyone had the patience for long suffering. That's where ritual stepped in. You glance toward the chapel. Its doors are still shut, but you know the priest will return soon, part of the script. He'll offer prayers, maybe sprinkle a few drops of holy water if the man is still breathing. And if he's not, well, there's still a rite for that, too. Superstition ran strong around executions. Some people believed that the soul lingered longer in a tortured body. Others whispered that dying on the wheel could purge a person's sins, almost like a violent baptism. One chronicler from the 1500s even wrote that a man cried out to saints mid-punishment and was later canonized. Probably apocryphal, but then again, what isn't? Still, many locals took it seriously. They wore talismans to the execution. They crossed themselves when walking past the wheel. You spot a woman now dressed in gray, walking stiffly past the platform, who spits on the ground and mutters a blessing. Under her breath, she doesn't look up. Then come the gamblers. Small cluster of men with thin beards and sharper eyes gathered just outside the square. They speak in hushed tones, placing small bets. How long until the man dies? Will he make it to sundown? Is that an eyelid twitch or just the wind? They look up. Watch. Wait. They're not monsters. Just bored. One of them bites into a pear and wipes the juice on his sleeve. Meanwhile, back on the platform, the assistants have returned. They're here for maintenance, not of the condemned, but of the scene. They mop around the base of the wheel, pour water over certain stains, and toss straw to soak up what the cloth can't. It's strange how tidy it all is. As though someone said, let's not let the gore distract from the overall presentation. You get the sense they've done this before. Many times, one assistant lights a stick of incense and tucks it into a lantern beside the wheel. A breeze carries the scent outward, sweet, woody, and completely at odds with the decay it's meant to mask. It smells almost nice, which makes you deeply uncomfortable. A man walks past you and mutters, "Poor soul. Should have picked a cleaner crime." You want to ask what that even means? Is there such a thing as a clean crime? One that ends with a pillow over your face instead of a hammer to your femur. You don't ask Dot. Instead, you focus on a different detail. The little things people carry with them today. A child with a wooden charm tucked into her pocket. A woman with a sprig of rosemary pinned to her collar. A farmer who clutches a carved wooden figure and rubs its head every time he glances at the wheel. One lesser-known detail, in some villages, people believe that standing in the shadow of the wheel just briefly could protect you from harm, absorb the pain, so to speak. Not unlike walking over a grave and holding your breath. You can't explain it, but you understand it. Pain leaves an imprint. And people have always tried to borrow meaning from the suffering of others. Historians still wonder whether the rituals surrounding these punishments were acts of cruelty or acts of cultural therapy. Was it really about watching someone suffer? Or was it about watching your own fear burn out under the sun? Did they come to see a man die or to reassure themselves that they were still alive? You step away for a moment, circling to the side where the shadow of the wheel stretches out across the ground. It's long now, warped by the rising sun. You let your foot rest just inside its edge. It's cold. Oddly cold. Probably just the wind. Probably you. Step back. One of the assistants leans over and checks the man's face. He presses 2 fingers to the man's neck, then glances at the other assistant and gives a shrug. Maybe a pulse. Maybe not. They don't look too concerned, because whether the man dies now or later, the wheel has already done its job. The people watched. The message was sent, and somewhere in this moment between the incense and the wagers and the unblinking eyes of the crowd, you realize this was never about the man. It was always about the audience. A few hours later, you're still there because somehow Time has slowed to a lazy drip, like cold honey off the edge of a spoon. Nothing urgent is happening. No dramatic cries, no sudden movements, just the slow churn of life resuming itself. Around a wheel-bound corpse that may or may not still be alive. And that's the point, isn't it? The wheel was never a climax. It was a suspension, a pause button on someone's life. Played back in brutal slow motion for the community to consume like an open-air sermon. The town square, now more scattered than crowd, has entered a new phase. The post-show women pick their way past the stage with baskets tucked under their arms. Pretending not to glance up, tradesmen lean against doorframes, one hand on their hip, the other scratching at 3-day stubble. Somewhere down the alley, a man yells at a goat who seems unconvinced. You notice something strange. People are starting to talk about the wheel like it's a person. Poor thing. One woman murmurs, not about the man, but the wheel. She's held up well, another says, patting one of the stage's corner posts. It's not affection, exactly. It's familiarity, like how you speak to a tool that's always done what it was built to do, as if the wheel were part of the town itself, passed down like a legend, not just a device, but a witness. Here's a widely accepted truth. The wheel wasn't just used in one place, by one group, for one kind of crime. It was astonishingly common across Europe for hundreds of years. France, Germany, the Netherlands, even parts of Scandinavia used it for public executions. Some towns even gave their wheel a name, just like a ship or a church bell in one small town near Cologne. The wheel was affectionately referred to as Die Mutter, the mother, grim but telling, because she always took care of justice. You circle back to the platform and study it again. There's an intimacy here you hadn't expected. This thing, this contraption that broke men like kindling, has been handled with care. Someone polished the iron bands. The straps are oiled. Even the wood, chipped and darkened, has clearly been scrubbed more than once. It's not just maintained. It's respected. That's unsettling in a way you can't quite name. Like finding flowers left on a guillotine, one of the assistants sits nearby on an overturned bucket, gnawing quietly on a piece of bread. He's the younger one, the boy, really. His hands are filthy. His boots caked with dried straw and something darker. But his eyes are sharp, constantly scanning. Not out of fear, out of habit. You wonder if he sees it as a job or a legacy. There's a saying you overheard earlier in the day: the wheel chooses, no sides, which is, frankly, a lie. Because social status played a massive role in who ended up on this thing. Nobles, clergy, merchants, they were usually spared, or at least given quicker, cleaner deaths. A sword, a rope, a private chamber. But peasants, vagrants, foreigners, the wheel had a long appetite and short patience for them. You sit on the edge of a barrel and watch as two older men in cloaks approach the platform. One squints up at the figure strapped to the spokes. Still breathing? He asks. The other snorts. He'll be gone by dusk. Storm's coming. They both nod like farmers discussing crop rot. Then they walk away. Storm. You glance up. The sky shifted slowly, quietly. Pale yellow has given way to gray cotton, thick and drowsy. The air is heavier now, carrying that sweet metallic scent that always comes before rain. And with it comes the next question. What happens if the rain hits before the body dies? You hear someone ask that very thing to a passerby. Depends. The man replies with a shrug. Some places let him down. Others just let him rot. A beat of silence, like scarecrows, the woman says softly. He nods, one strange historical detail in certain towns when a man on the wheel died too quickly. They'd actually pretend he was still alive for a while. They'd prop his head, retighten the ropes, maybe move an arm, because the longer the illusion lasted, the longer the punishment could count. There's a story, probably apocryphal, of a man whose corpse was kept on the wheel for 10 days. People came and paid respects, not out of pity, but because they believed the sight of his broken body kept evil away. Some even brought their sick relatives to stand beneath the wheel, hoping to transfer disease to the dying. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or community catharsis. Was the wheel an instrument of punishment or a grotesque sort of therapy? You don't have the answer, but you do have the image burned into your brain now. The dead as scarecrows, soaking up curses. A gust of wind lifts the hem of your tunic. The ropes on the wheel creak again. The figure on it stirs. Just a twitch could be nerves. Firing in death's leftovers could be something more. But the townspeople don't flinch anymore. Because by now, it doesn't matter. The man is no longer the man. He's the message. A warning written in bones and wood. A final sentence that doesn't need words. And you've stayed long enough to learn it by heart. The rain comes quietly at first, like a soft apology from the sky. It doesn't slam down in torrents, but drifts. A slow mist settling over the square, turning stone and wood slick and gleaming. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, feeling the chill seep in beneath the fabric. People begin to scatter. The vendors hastily pack their carts, muttering about spoiled goods and lost profits. The few stragglers glance uneasily toward the wheel, now shining wet in the gray light. Its iron bands dark and glistening. The man on the wheel hasn't moved for hours, and now the rain makes him look even more ghostly, like a statue carved from a nightmare and left to weather in the elements. You watch a woman approach with an umbrella made from stitched leather, carefully stepping over puddles. She pauses near the platform and murmurs a prayer you can't catch. Her fingers clutch a small wooden cross tightly. The rain blurs your vision, but you catch a glimpse of the executioner's assistant, the boy from earlier, standing under the shadow of a nearby archway. His face is unreadable, but his eyes flick toward the wheel and then away quickly, like he's trying to forget. Something you realize how exposed the wheel is now. It's no longer just a tool of punishment, but a grim sentinel soaking in the cold rain, bearing witness to the decay of flesh and the slow passage of time. Here's a fact you might not expect. Some communities would sometimes cover the wheel with a canopy or tarp during rainstorms to protect the condemned, but others believe that exposing them to the elements was part of the punishment, that rain and sun worked as silent executioners alongside the mallet and ropes. It's a little like nature joining in on the sentence. You find yourself wondering, how long could someone survive, tied to a wheel, exposed to rain, wind, and cold? Historians suggest it varied wildly from a few hours to several days, depending on injuries, weather, and the mercy or cruelty of those tending the scene. Speaking of tending, you notice a figure creeping closer through the drizzle. A local healer, perhaps, or a sympathetic villager. They carry a small bundle of herbs, something to ease pain or clean wounds. You don't know if it's allowed or simply an act of quiet rebellion in the background. The lute player has packed up. The laughter has faded completely. Now, only the patter of rain and the occasional murmur ripple through the quieting square. The rain becomes heavier. Drops splatter against the wood, soaking into the leather straps holding the man fast. You imagine the cold seeping into his broken bones, the sharp sting of wet cloth against torn skin. Yet the man remains silent, motionless, unyielding. One curious detail: the wheel itself often outlasted its victims. Some were kept for years as macabre landmarks, rusting slowly in town squares. Children dared each other to touch the iron spokes at night, whispering of curses and ghosts. You can see why the wheel is more than a tool. It's a symbol carved from fear and power, an icon of the harsh justice that once ruled the land. You shift your gaze upwards, watching the clouds darken and roll overhead like slow, heavy drums. Thunder rumbles faintly in the distance, like the earth itself is responding to the scene below. You breathe out slowly, the mist of your breath mingling with the rain. The smell of wet wood and damp earth fills your nostrils, grounding you in this strange, ancient moment. There's a question hanging in the air, one that historians have debated for centuries. Did the public executions and displays like this really deter crime? Or did they merely perpetuate a cycle of fear and violence? Was justice served, or was it spectacle, dressed up as order? As the rain continues to fall, you find no answer. Only the quiet drip of water and the slow turning of the wheel's shadow on the wet stones. You feel the weight of time pressing down, thick and endless. And somewhere beneath the cold, soaked wood and iron, life is fading away, one slow breath at a time. The storm passes as quietly as it arrived, leaving the square glistening and damp under a cautious sun. The air smells fresher, cleaner, but there's a heaviness that lingers. Like the weight of all the silent breaths held here, you find yourself drawn back to the wheel, which now stands rigid and stoic, its spokes casting sharp shadows on the wet cobblestones. The man strapped to it, if he's still alive, is barely more than a shell, pale and bruised, fragile as a broken doll. The crowd, once a bustling sea of voices and colors, has thinned to a handful of quiet onlookers. Some whisper prayers, others sit on the stone steps, staring into the distance, lost in thought. You catch the eye of a grizzled old man leaning against a nearby wall. His face is carved with years of hardship and perhaps regret. He nods slightly at you, as if sharing a secret too heavy for words. "Did you know," he says softly, "that some condemned were given a final mercy?" A quick snap of the neck before the wheel, so the braking was only for show. You blink, surprised. "I thought the wheel was the punishment." He shrugs. "For some, yes. For others, a performance. A warning to the rest." You let that settle. As the old man shuffles away, there's something theatrical about the whole affair. The wheel, the priests, the executioners, the crowd, all playing parts in a grim pageant. Justice, fear, and fascination wrapped tightly together. A lesser known fact, some towns use different types of wheels depending on the crime. The small wheel was lighter, designed for quicker death, while the great wheel was massive and cruel, meant for prolonged agony. The size of the wheel was a statement, a message in iron. You notice that the ropes on the man's wrists are loosening, worn by time and whether perhaps nature itself is easing his bonds. You can't help but wonder what the man's last thoughts might be. Does he dream of home, of family, of better days? Or has his mind already drifted far beyond this square? Historians debate the psychological toll on the condemned. Did some enter a trance-like state, disconnecting from their pain? Or was every moment unbearably sharp? Imagine the wheel as a paradox, both a cage and a stage, trapping the body but freeing the imagination. The afternoon sun warms your skin, a gentle reminder that life goes on, indifferent to suffering. You take a deep breath, savoring the contrast, and then, as the shadows lengthen, you notice something unexpected. A small bird, perhaps a sparrow, lands near the base of the wheel. It hops closer, tilts its head, and chirps softly. The crowd watches silently. Life, stubborn and persistent, continues its quiet song. Night fully settles over the town, a velvet curtain sprinkled with distant stars. The square is empty now, save for the faint outlines cast by flickering torches left burning near the wheel. The wet stones glisten, reflecting shards of firelight, giving the whole place an eerie, Dreamlike glow, you find a quiet spot on a nearby bench. The wood cool beneath your fingers and lean back, letting your eyes adjust to the darkness. The stillness here is almost complete, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. You notice how the wheel's silhouette looms large and silent, a monstrous shadow draped across the square. The man strapped to it is motionless, his body barely more than a broken shape in the dim light. It's strange how something so horrific can feel so calm now, like the eye of a storm that's finally passed. You think about the executioner and his apprentices in the quiet. You imagine. There lives beyond this place. What did they dream of? Did they carry the weight of the wheel home with them? Or was this just another day, another task, another face among many? Here's a historical tidbit. Many executioners married among themselves or with families of other outcasts. They formed tight-knit communities, bound by their unique roles in society. Often their children inherited the family business, perpetuating a legacy of isolation and strange respect. The thought makes you reflect on how justice and punishment were not just about law, but about social order and survival. You glance up at the stars again, trying to find a familiar constellation. The night air smells of damp earth and wood smoke, grounding you in this moment, far removed from the violence you've witnessed. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, sharp and lonely. You feel a soft sadness creep in, not for the man on the wheel, but for the world that made such things necessary, for the rituals born from fear, the crowds drawn by spectacle, and the executioners caught between duty and exile. There's an odd kind of beauty in this sadness, a quiet understanding that darkness can sometimes teach us more than light. You close your eyes briefly, letting the sounds and smells wash over you. The rustling leaves, the distant night animals, the steady pulse of your own breath. Questions still hang. Was the wheel truly justice or merely cruelty disguised? Did it deter crime or fuel a culture of fear? Did the condemned find peace in their final hours or endless torment? You don't. Answer: you let the questions drift away like smoke. The torches flicker lower. The shadows deepen. You feel your body soften, your mind quiet, and in the hush of night, the wheel waits silently for the dawn. The dawn is slow to arrive, like a shy visitor peeking through heavy curtains. The sky is a gentle wash of pale blue and pink, softening the harsh edges of the square. The wheel stands silent, bathed in this early light, no longer a terrifying instrument, but a still, somber monument. You take a deep breath, feeling the cool morning air fill your lungs, carrying the faint scent of dew and earth. The world seems to hold its breath with you, waiting for something unseen as the town stirs. Awake, a few early risers make their way to the square. A baker carrying a basket of fresh bread pauses beside the wheel, setting down his load with a reverent quiet. He whispers a blessing before quickly moving on. Children begin to gather again, not with the wild curiosity of before, but more cautious, almost as if respecting the solemnity of the morning. Their eyes are wide, filled with questions they don't yet have words for. You watch a woman, cloaked and steady-handed, approach the wheel. She carries water and linen, carefully tending to the remains of the man still bound there. It's a ritual of care, a quiet act of humanity amid the shadow of death. A little-known fact: in some regions, townsfolk believed that tending to the condemned's body after death could cleanse their own souls. They saw it as an act of mercy and protection, bridging the gap between cruelty and compassion. You find yourself mesmerized by this quiet devotion. The woman's movements are gentle, almost tender, as she cleanses the man's face and loosens the straps enough to ease his limbs without releasing him. There's a solemn dignity in the scene, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, empathy survives. You think about the passage of time, and how the wheel's story stretches beyond this one man. Beyond this one town, it's a story of fear, justice, ritual, and the human need to find meaning even in suffering. Historians still ponder, did such rituals of care help communities heal? After public punishments, were they a way to reclaim some humanity from an otherwise brutal system? As the sun rises higher, you feel the warmth seep into your skin, a slow invitation to move forward, to leave behind the wheel and the weight of its history. But before you, do you take one last look, a silent farewell to the echoes of pain and resilience that linger here? The square begins to fill again, life creeping back into its stones and streets, and you realize that while the wheel may remain, the world turns. Onward, carrying with it the lessons and shadows of the past. The bustle of the day returns in waves. Merchants set up their stalls, horses clop on cobblestones, and voices rise in familiar rhythms. The square is alive again, but something has shifted beneath the surface, a quiet respect woven into the fabric of daily life. You wander slowly, feeling the sun's warmth on your face as you observe the townsfolk going about their routines. Children play near the fountain, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. An elderly man reads aloud to a small group beneath a blossoming tree, his voice steady and kind. Yet, when your gaze drifts back to the wheel's place, you notice the absence more than the presence, the hollow where the wheel once stood, now removed, leaving behind only worn marks on the cobbles. It's a curious emptiness, like the final note of a song that lingers just long enough to make you want to listen again. Here's a historical note. The breaking wheel slowly fell out of use over centuries, replaced by supposedly more humane methods like hanging or the guillotine. The last known official execution by wheel was in 1841, marking the end of a gruesome era. The shift wasn't just about technology or law. It reflected changing ideas about justice, dignity, and human rights. Philosophers, reformers, and ordinary people alike began to question the spectacle of suffering. You spot a group of children gathered around a storyteller, weaving tales of old times. One story mentions a giant wheel that could crush mountains. Another, a brave soul who escaped its grip. The myths are larger than life, tinged with exaggeration and awe. A quirky detail, some folklore imagined the wheel as a kind of cruel goddess, spinning fate's threads with iron spokes, an eerie reminder of how deeply this symbol embedded itself in culture. You pause by a small shop window, catching your reflection alongside a faded print of a wheel from centuries past. The image is stark, yet strangely compelling. You wonder how many people today remember the wheel's true story, not just as a symbol of brutality, but as a mirror reflecting humanity's darkest fears and, perhaps, its capacity for change. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the street. And as evening settles, you feel a gentle closing, a sense that this journey through history is winding down. But before you step away, there's one more breath to take, one last thought to carry. The wheel may be gone, but its shadow remains, in stories, in memory, in the quiet moments when we choose mercy over cruelty. The evening light softens, draping the town in a warm, exacting mail. Fingers of dusk creeping along the walls, and winding through the streets like gentle reminders that the day is ending. You feel the weight of hours settling into your bones, the slow unwinding of a day spent watching the echoes of history unfold. You pause by a small chapel near the square. Its doors open just enough to reveal flickering candlelight inside. The scent of burning wax mingles with the cool evening air, creating an atmosphere both sacred and serene. It's a quiet sanctuary in a world that once knew such loud brutality. Inside, a priest whispers prayers, words you cannot fully hear but sense deeply. They seem to carry both comfort and penitence. a hope for redemption, even amidst darkness. You think about the countless souls who passed through this town. Some condemned, some forgiving, all caught in the delicate balance between justice and mercy. The wheel was once a cruel centerpiece, but now it's a memory folded gently into the fabric of the town's story. You notice how the people around you move slower now. Their voices softer, their gestures more thoughtful. The weight of the past seems to have seeped into their bones, urging kindness and reflection. A fascinating fact. By the 19th century, shifting philosophies and growing humanitarian movements led many European countries to outlaw cruel punishments like the breaking wheel. These changes were not instantaneous, but the result of decades of debate, empathy, and evolving values. Still, the wheel's legacy remains etched, not just in stone or wood, but in the collective consciousness. A reminder of where we have been and where we might choose to go. You find a quiet bench beneath a blooming chestnut tree and sit, feeling the cool evening breeze rustle through the leaves above you. The distant sounds of life, the chatter of families, the clink of mugs, the soft strum of a lute create a gentle lullaby. You close your eyes and breathe. In the night, letting the calm wash over you. One open question lingers in your mind. How do we remember the past without becoming trapped by it? How do we honor those who've suffered while moving toward a kinder future? There's no easy answer, only the quiet promise that, with awareness and compassion, the cycle of cruelty can one day be broken. As stars begin to blink awake overhead, you feel your eyelids grow heavy. You lean back, letting the night enfold you in its soft embrace. The wheel's story, once sharp and brutal, has softened into something quieter, something you can carry with you without being crushed. And with that thought, you start to drift. Night deepens completely now. The town is hushed beneath a quilt of stars, the moon casting silver light over empty streets and shuttered windows. The square, once filled with noise and motion, feels like a quiet breath held between heartbeats. You find yourself back near the spot where the wheel once stood, though now there's only memory. The rough circle marked in the stone. A faint scar of history, you run your fingers gently over the cool surface, feeling the echo of countless footsteps, whispers, and silent prayers that have passed through here. The wheel was more than a tool. It was a symbol, a warning, a public statement carved into the very space where people lived and worked and loved. But now, in the stillness, it feels like a chapter closing softly, a shadow folding back into the earth. You breathe in deeply, savoring the cool night air tinged with the scent of blooming night flowers and distant wood smoke. The stars above shimmer quietly, as if watching over the town's long story of justice, cruelty, resilience, and hope. You realize that every era, every place, carries its own stories, some brutal, some beautiful, and that by remembering, we honor all of them. The wheel reminds us that justice is never simple, that pain can teach and haunt, and that mercy is always worth seeking. You let your breath slow, your body soften, and your mind drift gently with the night. The past has told its tale. Now it's time to rest.